Welcome into the Boston Sports Summit, and tonight you got Boston, baby. That is right. The Celtics are going to be kicking off the playoffs, but I'll get to that in just a minute. I do want to welcome you into another edition of the Boston Sports Summit presented by the Grid Network. I am your host, Tim Barnett, and we have a very interesting show coming to you tonight. As you can tell by the title alone, you can't win the World Series in April, but that's kind of a big but. Also, we have the Boston Bruins, who officially have wrapped up their season just last night or the other night after a overtime loss, which they shouldn't have even gone to overtime. Just like the friggin' Patriots, that team screws up their draft slot position because, they want to play hard. Again, foolish. But, and then to wrap things up, we have the Celtics starting their playoff run as of Sunday. They're going to be playing the Magic after the play-in game from the other night between the Magic and the Hawks, where, of course, the Orlando Magic won. So that's going to be an interesting series. But first, we are going to be talking about the Boston Red Sox. And it has really been one of the most frustrating starts to the season I can remember. Because and I don't think it's been as frustrating because the Red Sox just are a crappy team and we're expecting this. No. It has been so frustrating because they went out. They traded for a good pitcher in Garrett Crochet, a guy who is supposed to be their ace. They got him. Then they signed Alex Bregman. They actually ponied up some money and got Alex Bregman into the lineup to also not only help be a Gold Glove third baseman, but also be a leader on this team. And the whole thing has just been an absolute debacle for the most part. It feels like, even though they're 10-10 right now, they're playing 500 ball. It doesn't feel like that. And that's where I kind of want to start off. I want to start off, yes, that the Red Sox did win the last two games, the last two nights, and have a offseason, but an important word.
All right, you guys, let's listen up. We won a game yesterday, and if we win one today, that's two in a row. We win one tomorrow, that's called a winning streak. It has happened before. So let's see some hustle. Let's jack it up a little. I got a feeling things are about to turn around for us.
Things are about to turn around, right? Right? I don't know about that. And listen, I am not looking into the future on this. I'm just talking about what I'm seeing so far. Right now, the Red Sox lead Major League Baseball with 197 strikeouts. And as of Monday night, they had 20 more strikeouts than any team in baseball. So with that in mind, that's not a good look. That's not a good start. They are also the 8th worst in baseball with runners left on base, with over 15 players per game, which is astronomically high. And they're not far off from the number one spot either. They also have had multiple situations where, again, you have runners in scoring position. What happens? They strike out. They get out, versus getting them home. The one mental mistake was the other night with Jarren Duran trying to steal third base. Outside of that, everything else has just been lazy ground balls, pop outs, basic hits that you're sitting there going, what are you doing? This isn't situational baseball. Going back to my discussion about Jim Rice and his, stance with Driveline, this is where I'm starting to get agitated. Between the nerds, they have taken this game, and again, they have just simplified it to a point where it's not that simple. Everyone wants to say that football is this game of chess. I beg to differ. I think the closest game that resembles to chess is baseball. Why? Because you have to understand, okay, with one out, a lefty at the plate, you have a right-handed pitcher on the mound. It's the third inning. It's the second time around the order. You got one out, man on first. What are you doing? How good is the hitter at the plate? What is the pitcher like? Is he a fastball guy? Is he a breaking ball guy? Is he got great control over everything? Does he throw it fast? Does he throw it slow? Is he accurate? Is he not accurate? There's so much to consider. Do I bunt here? Try to move him along? Do I hit it the opposite field as a lefty? Do I have to pull it? Is that kind of my natural tendency? There's so much going on in a manager's mind that they have to decipher. And now, listen, I'm not saying that, Alex Cora is the greatest manager ever. I'm starting to have my doubts about that. And I've been a big Alex Cora defender for a very long time, simply because the ownership in the front office have not given him any good players to play with, or to manage. It's just been these guys who are lower tier guys who, are platoon players who are playing a hell of a lot more often than they really should be. But you're kind of getting by. And then when the trade deadline comes, the Sox have done nothing, which is why Cora kind of just turtles. So I've given him a free pass for a very long time. 2018, I thought showed me a lot. And then 2021 showed me even more. Getting 2 games away from winning the American League and making it to the World Series. It was really something to behold. Like that 21 team caught a lightning in a bottle. But the point that I'm trying to make with, the chess game that has to be played is, again, going back to being in the batter's box with situational hitting. That is something that I think this team sorely lacks, because these nerds at Driveline think that the game is so boiled down to chance. These nerds think that this game is so boiled down to chance when it comes to hitting the ball. Perfect example. You have a big Boston sports guy on Twitter. I'm not going to name names, but he comes out with a tweet talking about Tristan Casas, where Tristan Casas has gone 1 for 10 in the Rays series, but 6 of his 10 plate appearances produced exit velocities over 97 miles per hour. What does that get me? And then, of course, goes on to just be like, oh, see, Tristan Casas is good. He can hit the ball really, really hard. And again, I have nothing against this guy who tweeted it, because I think it's not just him. I think it's a whole host of people in baseball, people, younger in the sport, that are so focused on these analytics, so focused on these numbers and exit velocities, this, that, and the other, where I'm like, guys, what happened with those hits? Oh, that's right. He got out 5 of those 6 hits because he was 1 for 10. So I'm like, it's almost like, like I mentioned a couple weeks prior, I go, listen, it's not about, the stats. It's not about expected. Okay, fine. He hits the ball really, really hard. Great. But it's going to somebody else. Now, without those numbers, without the exit velocity and all that nonsense, my thought is, as somebody who likes to claim to be an old school baseball guy, my thought is, listen, if you can get the bat on the ball and get out, you're due. That to me is old school philosophy. Just that, listen, okay, you've gotten up 6 times, you've gotten up 10 times, you've gotten out, you've hit the ball, made contact with the ball 6 of those 10 times. That's good. All right. Yes, you did get 1 out, but hey, you're getting the bat on the ball. That's huge. That's a step forward in the right direction. Now it's about trying to hit the gap out in the outfield. It's about trying to situational hit and put the ball where the defense is not. Really, that's what it comes down to. And then listen, if you get lucky, you get the C&I single, great, no problem. But to sit there and be like, see, he got, or he hit the ball 6 of 10 times, and the exit velocity was at 97 or higher. So, see, Tristan Casas is a good ball player. The 97 miles per hour does nothing for me. And it should really do nothing for anybody else. Because to sit there and say that the 97 is so important, that the exit velocity hit the bat off the ball is so important. I mean, how far did the outfielder really have to move to make that catch? Did he rob it? Was it hit right to him? Because the next step in that mindset is not he keeps hitting it that hard, ergo the ball is going to go out and he's going to hit home run after home run after home run. No. The mindset should be, all right, screw your exit velocity. Hit the ball where they're not. Okay? Like, good. You're seeing the ball. You're hitting the ball. But now hit it where they're not. And so it's the situational hitting is just not there. And I think really a perfect example of that happened last night. The Red Sox, to their credit, won a 1-0 game. And it was by an absolute fluke of a home run by David Hamilton, which would have never been a home run anywhere else in Major League Baseball. It just goes to show that playing at a spring training field does have its advantages, and it more advantage for Tampa because they're playing there 81 games of the year. And then the funny part is, I do just want to say this, Christopher Smith, Mass Live, again, no ill will, but to sit there and I don't even know if you put the headline. If you put the headline, if that was an editor's choice, then shame on the editor. But the headline of the article is Red Sox reactions. David Hamilton homers to break 1-for-21 slump in 1-0 win. So, okay, he's now 2-for-22? Is that really how we're going to do this? Because to me, breaking of a slump is going 3-for-4 after that type of situation. And when looking at the box score last night, David Hamilton was 1-for-3 with that home run. So I wouldn't say that he broke the slump. If anything, he went from 1-21 to now 2-for-25. And how does that help anyone? So that was the game last night in a nutshell, right? That home run, rest of it was defense. Pitching, I will admit, bullpen, much better than I anticipated going into this year. Much better. I can't believe they've been able to do what they've done. Garrett Whitlock, loving his middle relief. I think he's really come along, and it's great to see him out there. Just hope that he stays healthy and everything works out for him. But it's I think he's been the rock of the bullpen. But and going back to situational hitting, you had the Red Sox outside of the David Hamilton home run. They loaded the bases with 1 out as Trevor Story walked, Gonzalez doubled, and Casas walked himself. Carlos Navarez swung at the first pitch he saw. So the bases loaded, 1 out. And the catcher, who isn't even supposed to be in the big leagues right now because Connor Wong got hurt, our catcher, Carlos Narvaez, I can't say his last name. Sorry, I mean that. But he popped out on the first pitch to shortstop. Okay, so now you got 2 outs. Base is still loaded. And then David Hamilton, the one and only, waited until the second pitch to then hit the ground ball back to the mound. So you're sitting there going like, just another instance. Runners in scoring position, hell, bases loaded, and you blow that. So that's one. Then in the fifth inning, Jarren Duran had a double on a fly ball that Jose Cabrera misplayed. And then with Rafael Devers up to plate, Duran, I don't know if this was him or Cora. And either way, I think it was foolish to try to steal third base, but he did. And he stole, got thrown out. And so now Devers was up to bat with 2 outs and Devers with 2 outs gets a base hit. He hits a single. So you're telling Jarren Duran easily could have scored on that base hit because he's just that fast. So that's another run that was blown. And then, of course, after Devers singled, Trevor Story flat out to center. Then, leading the 6th inning, Wilyer Abreu doubled. And that got wasted because with no outs, a man on second, Romy Gonzalez struck out. Cassis was retired on a fly ball to left field, so no advancement there. And then Carlos Narvaez, sure, he struck out as well. So you had multiple opportunities with runners in scoring position, and I would say great opportunities. Again, 1 out, no outs. You had multiple cracks at this, and you still found a way to blow it. You still found a way to screw this up. And that's kind of what bothers me, going back to the drive line, the Jim Rice, the hitting. It's that they are so focused on hitting the ball hard and high that they don't care. They don't sit there and with 2 strikes on them, choke up on the bat. Okay? They're more concerned with, let's just hit the ball hard, and as long as we try to hit for home runs, that's all that matters. Well, guess what? You hit for home runs like that, you're going to look stupid and foolish. And I'm trying to think of an old Red Sox player that played for like half a time with us, and he came from Cincinnati. Oh God! Needless to say, all he did was look for home runs, and yet he struck out a ton of the time. So basically, it was just like, that's what we are. That is what we are. Our philosophy is that it's hit the ball hard, hit the ball far, and hope we, hit home runs more than we strike out, rather than sitting there focusing in on what the situation presents itself as. You got runners in scoring position. You got 2 outs. You need a base hit. Let's choke up on the bat a little bit higher, and then let's shorten our swing, get bat to ball, and hit line drives, and hopefully it gets through the infield into the outfield for a base hit, scores at least 1 run. That's what the game is about. It's chess, damn it. That is all this is. And yet the nerds are trying to simplify it so much. That's why the game is not played the way it should be. That's the crux of the issue. And that's why the Red Sox, while having their runners in scoring position issues, striking out like a ton, that is where this kind of, if they just got back to basics, if they just got back to situational hitting, stop listening to this whole, crap about, we got to worry about exit velocity. We got to worry about this. It doesn't matter. The expected outcome is not the outcome. That's where it's kind of just becoming too much. It's becoming too much. And I think that's what is going on. I mean, the fact that the Red Sox have 197 strikeouts in Major League Baseball right now, 20 games into the season. You're telling me the team is striking out nearly 10 times a game. Nearly 10 times a game. And it's funny, the Rockies just shot themselves back up with 195, so they're 2 behind us. But then after that, and it looks like the Pirates just got updated. Some of the games have played today just got updated because when I looked at it, it was the Red Sox at 197, the Rockies at 195, and the Braves at 178. So again, there's a precipitous drop-off from where we are to the third place team. There was a massive drop-off from 1 to 2 in terms of most strikeouts just a week ago with us leading the charge. But it's getting to the point where I don't care who you are. Yes, right now we're almost at 10 strikeouts a game. The rest of these teams, that's still too much strikeouts, at least for my opinion. And I'm not saying that every guy, should be making, contact, because I agree. I think hitting the baseball is the hardest thing to do in all of sports. But it's to have that. And I know after Monday, Alex Cora, reamed out his coaching staff, which is what he said, and rightfully so. He needed to ream somebody out for that Monday loss, 16-1, against the Rays. But I'm not saying that the Red Sox should fire any of the coaches right now. And, from what I've been told, Driveline is really only concerned with the minor leagues, which to me, I don't believe that's true. They might have some of their guys, really focused in on the minor leagues, but I don't believe that's true. I believe that this is a institutional mindset on how to hit. And I think it stems because the Red Sox have hired 9 Driveline guys. 9. Some of them were like right there, upper echelon in Driveline. And you're telling me that, oh, no, we're not focused on the big team. We're going to be focused on just the minor league, just the guys, who are making their way up. I don't believe that. And I think it goes to show just from what's going on right now. The way that let me think. The way the Red Sox are attacking hitting in their approach to hitting, that's why I don't believe it. And as I played some clips last week from Driveline guys talking about you can't be a hitting coach unless you know these stats, these numbers, how to do this. I don't believe that's true. I really don't. Again, you can work with a guy. Yes, technology helps now. You can slow everything down. You can see kind of where the bat and the plane of the bat is going, how soon his hands come through the plate. Absolutely. I think that without a doubt helps. But to sit there and then say that, oh, well, you got to do this, that, and the other, be based on percentages, based on this, that's where you lose me. And so I think right now where the Red Sox stand, they're lucky that the American League East is not that good because the Red Sox are only 2-3 games out of the number 1 seed. But it leads me to believe that there might be greater issues going on with the Red Sox. And as I mentioned earlier, is Alex Cora really the guy to lead us through this? And again, I've been one of the biggest Alex Cora supporters. I've been his defender because front office has done nothing to help him out in terms of getting him good talent. They've let a lot of good talent walk, traded Mookie Betts, who is still, having MVP Hall of Fame-like numbers out in, La La Land. But I'm starting to look at this differently now. Why do I say that? Because after this Tampa Bay series, we're now sitting at 10-10. 20 games into the season. And again, still a lot of time left to be played. 142 games left. I think I think we're fine. I'm not sitting here overreacting, but I'm just throwing these points out there because I think it's worth just keeping in the back of your head as the season goes on. And I think you guys remember when I did my opening day show, I was extremely high on this team. I thought this team was going to lack, some bullpen depth, but overall, I thought that we were going to be a solid defensive team. We were going to be a team that is going to be challenging for first place in the AL East, and we still could. But after everything I saw in that Blue Jay series, I think told me a lot. Because that Blue Jay series, they nearly blew a 4-game sweep. They nearly got swept by Toronto at home. And they whined about the cold. That's all they did. They whined that it was too cold. And listen, it was. You're playing in 35-degree weather in April. It's cold. But you're also in Boston. You think it stays warm year-round? You think that the Blue Jays, who you're playing, aren't playing in the same freaking cold? Apparently the team asked to move the game to the daytime rather than the nighttime, and the team said no. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but the team said no. And then what happens? They get killed. They pack it in. They don't seem to care. And Alex Cora, I thought, came out with a great quote, saying how we don't complain about the cold in October. That's true, because it gets cold in October too. You get the fall, the beauty of the fall coming in, the winter's approaching, the leaves are turning colors. It's great. It's great time to play some baseball. But it stemmed from that clubhouse that Cora is a part of. He never took onus of it, but he needed to. This team, I'm not sure, has the mental fortitude to be the team I think they can be. And that's what scares me. You got Tristan Casas starting in spring training when asked if he would bring up the young guys, Roman Anthony, Marcelo Maya, Christian Campbell, and just without skipping a beat, said no. He likes the team that we have and that it's good enough. He's playing GM. I don't understand. It's not that I don't believe that Tristan Casas doesn't care. No, I believe that the dude absolutely cares. I believe that every single player on that roster cares, that they want to go out and win, that they want to play their best and beat teams 10-1, 16-1, 16-0. They want to do that. They want to make no mistakes in the field, keep hitting home runs, and keep padding their stats. I'd be shocked if they didn't. But when it comes to Casas, the dude just knows how to talk himself into a corner every single chance he gets. And so when you're sitting there coming out, and then, of course, he comes and makes those awful errors in Chicago that he 1,000% should have had. Don't forget the spinning throw from Trevor Story, which would have ended the inning, hits him right in the glove, and he drops it. And even Story, who started jogging off when he saw it drop, kind of had one of those, oh, my God, like, you're kidding me. And of course that affects him. Of course that affects everybody. And this team was supposed to be this Gold Glove winning team. Well, Yeah, Gold Glove winning team. I mean, hell, the start of the season, we were talking about the whole entire outfield winning Gold Gloves. And those are the stories I've been seeing, the stories I've been reading. But now look at this team. And I just wonder how much of this has to do with Cora. You know, because, again, Craig Breslow, to his credit, did a halfway decent job this offseason. It took him a while, but he finally got there. And when I bring up Cora, I bring him up because I look back at the last 7 seasons that he managed from 2018 to 2025, the first 20 games. And I excluded the 2020 year. 1, shortened. 2, he wasn't the manager. In 2018, we were the best team in baseball, had a 17-3 record. Okay? No doubt. Like, that's a no-brainer. The following year, in 2019, we were 7-13. At the end of the year, we missed the wild card by 9 games. And that's when they had 3 wild card slots. In 2021, we were 12-8, secured the top wild card spot, and then went on to have a somewhat of a dream run with a team that, you know, I don't think we even thought would be good enough to get to the ALCS, let alone beat the Astros and be 2 games shy of the World Series that year. And then the following year in 2022, we were 8-12, and we missed everything. We were the worst team in baseball, or one of. And then in 2023, we were 10-10. And in the first 20 games, again, everything is first 20 games. We missed the wild card in 23 by the last wild card spot by 11 games. And then last year, we were 10-10, missed the wild card by 5 games. Final wild card spot by 5 games. You're telling me that there weren't a couple of those games in 24 and 23 that couldn't have helped get us more momentum and give us more closer opportunities to get to that wild card spot? I think they could have been. I think they absolutely could have been, especially last year. You know, last year, yeah, we were 10-10, but nobody expected that first half the way we performed. We were lights out by the All-Star game, especially with our starting pitching having the best ERA in baseball by the All-Star break. And then after the All-Star break, we just tanked. Why? I don't know. But now this year we're 10-10, and it feels like the season's over. It feels like we're done because we were promised a Gold Glove caliber third baseman who's already committed 4 errors so far. And our offense was supposed to be so much better, so much more talented. Casas has finally got his ribs straightened out where he's not getting shot every time he swings a bat. And, you know, Endeavors is playing DH. Bregman is a good hitter. And Duran can make a bigger leap after a great leap he had last year. So far, it hasn't been that at all. And again, it leads me to wonder why. What is going on? And so, again, I'm not looking to fire Alex Cora right now, but the hitting coach is not doing his job. And I swear if they put any of those drive line bums as the next hitting coach, I quit. I'm done. Like, you know, it's over because at the end of the day, they're just going to do the same stuff. They need to get real baseball people in. And listening to Jim Rice in the postgame is really him talk about their situational hitting is what needs to be said day in and day out. They got to figure that out. They got to figure that out. And you could go on. I mean, Tanner Houck has not had a good start to his season at all. And so something has to change with this team. And I hope it does. You know, we got a 2-game win streak. I'm not taking away thinking that we're on the right trajectory. The pass. No, they have tonight off. I think that they need to do more. They need to do more to give me that confidence that, hey, we're going to go. We're going to be better. We're going to play the way we play. And that's going to win us games because that's what we do. We end up getting situational hitting. We end up scoring runners who are in the scoring position and having high batting averages with that going on. So, listen, I'm not overreacting. But again, I think as the title of this episode says, you can't win the World Series in April, and to finish it off, but you can lose it in April. Just look at the records that I told you earlier. Had any one of those games been changed, had any one of those been wins rather than losses, we could have had different seasons last year, the year before, and all the other prior years. Let's not get off to the same start here. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it moving. So hopefully the Red Sox can change, but going to a team that their season is done, cannot change anymore, it is the Boston Bruins. They are done. They had 82 games. They finished with a 33, 39, and 10 record. And I'm glad. I'm glad we are finally put out of our misery. We don't have to worry about this team anymore. They just couldn't get the job done. They were overhyped, undercoached, undermanaged, just egos through the roof. Anything you want to say about this team, say it, because that was this team. That was the 2024-25 Boston Bruins. They just could not get the job done whenever they needed to. And you know what? Like I said, I'm glad the season's over. The only issue is, though, now we have to worry about the Flyers. Go figure, right? Because we do have draft lottery odds that the Flyers hopefully can help us out. But before I get into that, I want to talk about the Charlie Jacobs interview that he had with the Boston Globe and Jim McBride. So the title of the article goes, "It sucks. It sucks where we're at." Charlie Jacobs opens up about the Bruins' bad season as questions hang over the team. And yeah, what happened? I think is question number one, right? Like, you had a team that made the second round of the playoffs, didn't really lose many key pieces last year, and I thought upgraded with Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov, but nope, it just didn't work. And goaltending 1,000% played a role in that. So starting off, Charlie Jacobs talks about how he cares. He feels the booze. He goes, quote, "I'm invested in this team and I care about it. We're putting our best foot forward and it sucks where we're at, and they need to hear that." He was talking about they as in the fans, him saying that, yeah, we suck, saying that we as fans need to hear him say that. He also says, quote, "I hear the booze. I feel all that, and they need to know that we're working hard to right this ship." And yeah, I mean, I don't disagree that you're trying to work hard to right the ship. The only issue is, do you have the right people in place to right this ship? I mean, clearly you don't have a head coach. Joe Sacco is not the future head coach. And if he is, we're just going to be another crappy hockey team next season. That's a given. But then on the second part of the article, he goes, Jim McBride writes, "Jacobs has been unwavering in his support for Neely and for general manager Don Sweeney. Jacobs said he, quote, absolutely takes it very personally when he hears criticism of the Bruins front office." I mean, yes, because he put them in there. Him and his father put them there. They hired Cam. They hired Don. I mean, how would you feel if you hired somebody and everyone else is telling you that guy sucked? Of course you're going to take it personally. That guy's not doing his job, or at least according to everybody else, according to you, you think he is. But, that's what it takes. But the one thing, again, just trying to, read a little bit into it. And again, I could be totally wrong in saying this, but, worth noting. Jacobs has been unwavering. So does that has been like in the past? Now he's starting to doubt? Or is it has been just a misprint? It's not past tense. He still has faith in them or unwavering support, which I don't believe really he should have because of the fact that Don Sweeney has not been able to draft. And we'll talk about that a little later in this article. But, just a little note right there. Has been unwavering. Interesting. But then the next part is this page right here freaking killed me, because it starts off saying Jacobs pointed to while understanding the criticism of some in the fan base and media, Jacobs pointed to the success of the last decade, including a Stanley Cup final appearance and the record-setting regular season of 22-23, when he said, quote, "It's hard for me to wrap my head around why people call for Neely and Sweeney's heads." Now, I don't know about you, but to me, when front office, ownership throw history at my face, at least have a freaking title to throw at me. Because last time I checked, the last decade does not include 2011, where we won the Cup. The last decade includes 2, now 3, missed postseason appearances. It includes a Stanley Cup Finals run in 2019, where you lost to a goaltender who I still consider a bum, even though he won that Game 7 at our home ice and went on to win the Four Nations tournament, also in our home ice, playing for Team Canada. Friggin' Jordan Binnington. That dude, in my opinion, sold his soul. There's no way that goaltender should ever have a Stanley Cup ring. Let's be honest. But the fact that he's trying to tout, to say, well, look what Don and Cam did. They brought us to a Stanley Cup final. They had the best regular season in history. And yeah, those things happen. But Charlie, where are the banners? Where's the banner? Right there. Where's the banner that says, hey, Celtics win, or Bruins win a championship? Where is that banner from the last decade? That's right. I don't see it. And it's been a minute since I've been to the Garden, but remind me, do they have that 22-23 banner hanging up there saying that they had the best regular season in NHL history? Because I will do the same thing to them that I do to the Indianapolis Colts, that I did to the Tampa Bay Rays, that I do to any team, including the New England Patriots. If you hang up a banner that says you made the playoffs, you had a great regular season, you did this, you did that, you were an AFC championship finalist, according to the Indianapolis Colts in 2014. You were the AFC finalist. But you didn't win the Super Bowl. You didn't win the World Series. You didn't win the NBA championship. You didn't win the Stanley Cup. You have no right to hang a banner. And to anybody out there that says, well, the reason why we should hang banners that celebrate regular season success, that celebrate postseason success, that don't lead to championships, is because it goes to show, look, we're on the right direction. We're heading down the right path. And that's a good thing. The players can see that and be like, hey, look, that's what we have to beat. We got to be better than that. Do you not hear yourself? Because what that sounds like, at least in my ears, is that you're all part of this participation trophy era. Where I come from, It's championship or bust. You either win or you don't. You either make it to the Stanley Cup Finals and win it, or you don't. And if you don't, there's no need to be spending money on hanging frickin' banners. You know, if you make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and you lose, you're not an Eastern Conference finalist. You're a loser. You didn't win the big one. That's what matters. And that's what that's the only thing that matters in sports. It's winning. And yeah, you know what? I can sit here, and say that being a, guy who's lived through, having watched his team win multiple times, win all throughout basically my childhood, but at the same time, I don't know about you, but winning is everything. And I know a lot of people, it's going to sit there and be like, well, you're spoiled. You like that winning is not normal. And you're right. It's not normal. It was great. 20 years of absolute dominance. Being a playoff team with all four teams almost every year was great. It was fun to look forward to. It was just consistent after consistency. It was wild. Couldn't believe it. But that doesn't mean that I'm not sitting there not appreciative of that. That doesn't mean I'm sitting here and, I don't appreciate, what it takes to win and how consistently good you have to be in order to do that. But at the same time, yeah, when I saw, I mocked the Colts mercilessly in 2014. When they hanged that AFC finalist banner. When I saw, that the Rays hung a banner last year that said that they made the playoffs, even though they didn't score a single run and didn't win a single game in that series. They said they made the 2023 playoffs. Like, I'm sorry. But that, to me, is an absolute loser mentality. And that's not something that we accept, especially after this past 20-year dominance that we've had. We just can't be doing that. And that's something that when I see these comments from Charlie being like, he doesn't understand why people are pissed that, oh, well, we made a cup run. We made or we had the best regular season possible. That's true. But I'm also the same person, who will sit here and boo Don for not building this team, not preparing this team for the future, while also, just mixing sports here. I'm also the same person that has booed John Henry over the last 8 years, or not 8, 5 years, excuse me, over the last 5 years since the trade of Mookie Betts, because he's done nothing. He has done nothing. He has been an absentee owner who refuses to spend money and keeps telling the GM, don't spend money, don't spend money, get under that luxury tax. He didn't care that we were last place finishes 3 out of 4 years in a row, or 3 out of 4 years total. Like, to him, he's like, he got mad because we booed him. And he's like, I won you 4 World Series. Why are you booing me? You shouldn't be booing me. You should be kissing my feet. Yes, those World Series took place in 04, 07, 13, and 18. What have you done for me lately, John? It's the same thing that I'm looking at here. The cup run in 2019, heartbreaking. The even bigger heartbreak was having the best regular season, best team. I appreciate Don and Cam going all out the way they did, mortgaging the future, which they should have, to help bring a cup back to Boston, getting Orlov and Bertuzzi. But unfortunately, they couldn't do it. They lost in the first round to the friggin' Panthers. So that's why, yeah, I boo them. especially now, especially with this season. It was a disgrace. It's a disgrace of a season. Something that never should have happened. I was one of these teams that are guys that was saying that this is a playoff team just based on the roster. They were a playoff team just based on the roster itself. And yet they were literally the worst team in the Atlantic Division. Now fighting to get hopefully the fourth best odds at the number 1 overall pick. So that's my little soliloquy on that. But then to continue on, he talks about how the roster is constructed with Pasternak, McAvoy, Hampus, Lindholm, which I was surprised that he even mentioned Lindholm because I don't think he's lived up to the hype ever since getting traded and signing the contract. And then also saying that Jeremy Swayman's a promising young goalie. I think I don't know how that's going to go over. But the whole point of that was basically talking about a rebuild versus a retool. And the rebuild, I think we're on the verge of it. I know they want to try to reclassify as a retool, and Charlie Jacobs was trying to be like, well, I like the rebuild better or retool better because we're not a rebuild. We're not doing this, Looney Tune, TNT, Dynamite, Plunger, and blowing the whole thing up, which you kind of argue you did at the trade deadline. But, I think that it's definitely an interesting situation. I think it's an interesting situation that they're in the net. They're now trying to navigate. What are they going to do? Which side are they going to go down? Are they going to go down the side that, they're retooling. They're going to go out, sign some key free agents, and they're going to go make hopefully a couple big splashes in the draft that these kids are going to be ready to play right away. But I don't know, and that's going to be the big thing. So the one other thing that I wanted to talk about when it came to Jacobs' article was how he goes, quote, I feel that it was a little bit disorganized. There was a real lack of structure. You see teams to come through. They have a system. They have perhaps a fallback play, breakout play, something. And when I watched the Boston Bruins start of the season, it was just chaos. There was no organization. I had a difficult time understanding that given Monty's record, I don't know how to answer that other than to say something just changed. Now, with that, I don't believe that's true. I don't believe that's true. I think that's just a straight makeup in order to blame Jim Montgomery. Why do I say that? One, because they fired his ass. I think that's pretty straightforward. But also because 5 days after Jim got fired, he landed in St. Louis. Now, St. Louis at the time was teetering hard. They were, I think, 8 points out of a playoff spot at that time. And again, still early in the season, but when Jim Montgomery got there, he changed St. Louis, and they went on a 35-18-7 run since he became their head coach. After the Four Nations tournament, they were 19-4-3. The accolades that the players in St. Louis were saying about Jim Montgomery and his ability to communicate, his ability to understand the young players, understand what it takes to lead this team, I think says a lot. And not only does it say a lot about Jim Montgomery, I also think it says a lot about the dysfunction that was in the Bruins locker room. I think that is really where it stems from. I don't believe that it was Jim Montgomery. Now, listen, if I'm not sitting here saying that, things would have changed had Jim Montgomery had Jim Montgomery stayed for this entire season. If anything, I think it would have only gotten worse. But the little antics that were going on between Jim and Brad, the lack of I don't want to say respect. I don't think that's the right word, but just it definitely seemed that like Jim Montgomery was checked out. And I think that was because he was pissed about everything that was going on, about Swayman, about Brad as a captain, about all these little things, and his message just wasn't coming across to the players. I'm not sitting here saying that the Bruins were wrong in firing Montgomery. Hell, I was one of the guys calling for his head, and not calling for his head because I thought he sucked. I was calling for his head because I thought his message just wasn't getting through to the players. That's what I thought. And it was clearly evident, and ever more so after not only Charlie Jacobs' comments, but the comments from St. Louis and some of their players, where I'm sitting there going, where was that guy this year? What had to have happened where Jim Montgomery, who is a player's coach, who players love to play for, was the anti-Bruce Cassidy? Where was that guy? Clearly he wasn't there. And I wouldn't be surprised if Montgomery did kind of want to weave his way out of Boston, because it only took him 5 freaking days to get hired by St. Louis. I wouldn't be surprised if Montgomery was bitching to his agent saying, I need to get the hell out of here. And his agent, doing some dirty work behind the scenes, was able to line up the job saying, hey, listen, if you get fired, St. Louis is calling. And Montgomery has a history in St. Louis, so it worked out. But for him to go 35-18-7, 19-4-3 after the Four Nations tournament, the guys sure as hell love playing for him. So I don't believe that Charlie Jacobs saying, quote, I don't know how to answer that other than to say something just changed in terms of talking about, Montgomery and it was his fault. He was the reason. Of course it was his fault. That's something that the Bruins do all the time. Going way back to the Harry Sinden days. They blame the head coach every single time. It is never the GM's fault. I mean, hell, it took 2 bad years for Chiarelli to finally get the axe. And then they just bring up his assistant in Don, and he royally messed up the 2015 draft. So that's where, again, I sit there and it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense when I'm reading the comments from the Blues, but hearing Charlie talk about this, it's like, dude, I don't believe you. Yeah, I think it's that simple. And then lastly, just to talk about, Jacobs and his success, talking about Jacobs' family and spending money, he noted that Jacob bristled at the notion the Bruins are a franchise unwilling to offer big contracts. Obviously listing off Pasternak, McAvoy, Swayman, Lindholm, Zadorov. He goes, quote, I feel that people are hanging on to that narrative, haven't done any homework, not a little, just haven't done any homework. And I agree. The Bruins absolutely spend money. They're not the team of the Harry Sinden days where they refused to spend any money on their players. They took Ray Bourque to friggin' arbitration, arguably the second greatest defenseman in NHL history. They took him to arbitration. Now they spend money on bad contracts. That's what they do. The narrative is not, do they spend money anymore. No. The narrative is spending money on bad contracts, i.e. Swayman, Lindholm, Zadorov, McAvoy, I would even argue right now is a bad contract. And it's not just because he played a career low 50 games. I just don't think McAvoy has really done enough to earn that number one defenseman role. So it's just funny how, yeah, I agree with Charlie. Like, anybody who says the Bruins are cheap, you're foolish. But they sure as hell know how to spend money on bad contracts. So, that leads me now to hopefully getting good contracts from young players in this upcoming draft, where we got a whole host of draft picks finally, where we can actually make a first round, second round, third round pick. And the only issue is we have to rely on the frickin' Flyers to get the job done, to get 1 point. That's what we need to focus on, unfortunately, because right now the Bruins have the fourth best odds, as it is currently constituted at 76 points, have the fourth best odds to get the number one overall draft pick. But the Flyers are tied. They play tonight, if not right now. And if they win, whether they win outright or they get a point from overtime, then we will hold on to that fourth best spot. But if they lose in regulation, these are the odds the Bruins have. So as you can tell on the left, if the Flyers win, we have a 9.5% chance to get the first or second overall pick. No shot to get the third overall pick. But fourth, fifth, and sixth are really where we're going to lie. If the Flyers lose in regulation tonight, that means our first overall draft, our chance at the first or second is 8.5, 8.6% respectively. Same thing with third overall. No shot to get the fourth overall. And then the fifth is a 24.5% chance. Sixth is a 44% chance. And seventh is a 14.2% chance. So please, let's go Flyers. Can't believe I have to say that. But it's let's go Flyers. And I really do hope that the Bruins can at least get some luck on their side. Not only get the fourth best odds, but then get the first or second overall pick, because they desperately need some help like that. And allegedly, from what I'm hearing, it is a 2-person draft. The rest fall off a cliff after that. So let's hope that the Bruins are able to get that, first or second overall, and they actually make the right freaking move, because they need some young blood. They need some rejuvenated talent in our system, because we have none. We have none. And it sucks. Like, I hate to say it. It sucks. So, going from a team that plays at the Garden to another team that plays at the Garden, one that's got much better odds at winning the championship, we got the Boston Celtics. And I just want to ask you, how did you think I did with my prediction this year? Boston Celtics coming in at 60-22. They actually ended up at 61-21. And then I have the Sixers, who are not even in the playoffs, the Pacers, Knicks, Bucks, Cavs, who the Cavs actually have the best record in basketball. But I just thought that was pretty funny. I thought it was, hey, worth a shot. Never going to know. Things happen. Things change. So the Celtics are playing the Magic on Sunday. The Magic beat the Hawks in the first playing game, which gave them the 7th seed. So we know who we're playing. It's going to be taking place Sunday. The only interesting thing, though, I'm looking at when it comes to this is how the Magic are a very strong defensive team, whereas the Celtics, while they're good defensively, also are lights out offensively. And when looking at the Magic in the regular season, the Magic have beaten us 10 of the last 13 regular season games. Now, we got the lone game against them this year at the Garden, but it's when looking at the defensive numbers behind everything, the Magic are number one in terms of points against, and they are 17th in terms of field goal percentage. Now, when it comes to 3-point percentage, the Magic are not there. Trying to do this on the fly. My apologies. Should have had a little bit more of this prepared. Well, they're not that good at 3-point percentage for the opponents. So that's good news for us. Allowing us to score more 3-pointers. But when it comes to Orlando offensively, Orlando's 28th in scoring, 27th from the field in field goal percentage, and 30th in 3-point percentage. So they're not good. This really should be a sweep. Now, I know Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, two very good players. The only issue is when they come off the court, that's when Orlando sucks. That's when if they have a lead, they're going to blow it. And that's what nearly happened in the third quarter against the Hawks when they had a 21-point lead that got brought down to 3 because Banchero and Wagner were on the bench. So the next question is, how's Jaylen Brown's knee? Because he needs to be healthy. The Celtics, in order to repeat as champions, need to be 100% healthy, I think. I think Porzingis needs to play a big-time role. Not saying he's going to be the number 1 or number 2, but he needs to be a solid 3rd or 4th option, just depending on how the game is being played out. Is White getting the shots? Is Holiday getting the shots? Is Porzingis getting the shots? So that's kind of what needs to play out. But Brown has missed the last 3 games with a bone bruise in his knee. He's also gotten shots injected to alleviate the pain. So, and he's missed time before with this knee injury. Everybody's been saying that, oh, Brown's good. He's going to be ready to go. It's just he will be. It was a good thing that he missed those last 3 games. I would say sit him out until you need him. If you win game 1, he's not playing game 2. If you win game 2, he's not playing game 3, so on and so forth. Until you really need him. If it's 2-2 going into game 5, then yes, I'd bring him back. If it's 2-1 going into game 4 in our favor, then yes, I would bring him back. So I think that's kind of really where it sits, and it depends also too. It depends on that game 3. If it is 2-1 in the Celtics' favor, and this whole time it's been without Brown, I would say let's see, how did they lose that game 3? Was it a blowout? Was it, a last-second shot that they just got lucky? Was it something that you really needed Brown for? Or is it just that, all right, it's a one-off. We'll be fine. We'll get him back. That's kind of what I'm thinking, because we're gonna face some tough battles. If we make a deep run, we're definitely going to be facing some tough battles, whether that's going to be Cleveland, which could be very well the Eastern Conference Final. We could also be playing the Pacers and Knicks. I know a lot of people are going to be, if it is the Knicks, if the Knicks are our next matchup, and I know I'm looking ahead, but I'm just, keeping relative, right? I know people are like, oh, the Knicks with Karl Anthony Towns and, all the Jalen Brunson, they're going to be good. They're so much better. They're going to have a shot at the Celtics. No, they're not. The Knicks are a bunch of frauds, and they've proved it throughout the year. Yeah, they're the 3rd best team in the East. Big deal. I'm sorry. Karl Anthony Towns is soft. He's going to crater. And Jalen Brunson, he's not going to be able to carry the Knicks. He's just not. So I'm not scared of the Knicks. Not really worried about the Pacers either. I think, yeah, they gave us good games, but overall, I think that we'll be fine if we do end up playing them. I think if we play the Cavs, I think the Cavs are going to be the hardest team that we play in the East. But fully healthy, the Celtics should still beat the Cavs in 6. So I think this is going to be a good matchup. I think game 1 and game 2 are really going to just tell us a lot on how this is going to go. Again, remember, don't forget, outside of the NBA Finals, the Celtics lost game 2 at every outside of the Finals and the Eastern Conference Finals. The Celtics kept losing game 2 at home. So it'll be nice to see them actually win at home on a consistent basis. So I don't know. Game 1 is on Sunday. Looking forward to it. Thank you guys for sticking around, tuning in. It's been great talking some Red Sox, Celtics, and Bruins. There's a lot going on with these teams, and we got the draft coming up next week. I held off because I knew it was going to be a big talk about the Red Sox this time around. So next week, we're going to be a draft-heavy focus. We're going to try to get some guests on as well. But in the meantime, thank you so much. This is the Boston Sports Summit presented by the Grid Network. I am your host, Tim Barnett, and we will be back next Wednesday, the day before the NFL draft kicks off. So let's have some fun, shall we? All right. I will see you all next week. Thank you for sticking around, and God bless. Thank you.